Conservative Voices Silence. I'm Kristine Sposato, and I'm excited to be your guide through the stories that matter. Stories of resilience, strength, and triumph in a world that doesn't always make space for conservative voices.
And I'm Elizabeth Smith, joining Kristine in this journey. We know how it feels when your beliefs seem to be drowned out by the noise. But here on this podcast, we're turning up the volume.
That's right, Elizabeth, and we're creating a space where conservative voices can speak their truth, sharing the challenges they've faced and the victories they've celebrated.
Conservative Voices Silence is not just a podcast, it's a movement that recognizes the diversity within conservatism and gives a platform to those who felt marginalized.
So whether you're a conservative looking for reliable stories or someone curious about the experiences of those with differing viewpoints, you're in the right place.
Get ready for an engaging ride as we dive into the trials and triumphs of conservatives navigating a progressive world. We invite you to join us on this journey of discovery, understanding, and most importantly, amplifying voices that deserve to be heard.
This is Conservative Voices Silence, where silence ends and the conversation begins. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Conservative Voices Silence. We're here today. Elizabeth is here, and we have our guest, Beth Supis, who's here. Beth is a mother, grandmother, and a school board member. So we're focusing a lot on schools and education today. Beth, anything you would like to share with us before we start our conversation about schools and school boards and kids?
Okay, so a mother, a grandmother, a school board member. Yes, there is a lot of things going on in the school boards lately. I personally have one thing that's being talked about everywhere. Policies are being put through cell phones. I know a lot of places are now banning them, or the kids have to put them in those pouches while they're at school. I have mixed feelings about it. So part of me is like, absolutely, that makes sense. Kids are going to pay attention more. Learning so you'll back up. But then the other part of me is like, then we're teachers going to get what you're doing when you're not being recorded. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So, like you, I was up and down with it. I spoke to my biggest concern that I heard when I asked parents is the accessibility for emergency purposes. They want to have that connection to their student. We live in this world right now where families are frightened. They're afraid for their kids' safety at school, and they feel like that cell phone gives them that instant connection to their students if needed. My boys were in the middle school. For 4 years, they've not allowed phones in the middle school here in our county. So it wasn't new to them to hear this, and they always had their cell phone on them, just turned off and in their pockets. So if there was ever that need for emergency situations, they had that available. The policy that was written in our district doesn't really emphasize what the designated area is for each level as to where that's going to be made. The school principal will have that opportunity to make that designated area. So in our district, I don't quite know how that's going to roll out. School's starting next month, and it's definitely going to be in everybody's eye as to where those designated areas are going to be. But so from K through 8, we are not allowing them at all. They are turned off the entire day. 9 through 12, you can use them during your class periods and at lunchtime. So I think that is a good idea, especially for a lot of these students who have jobs who rely on, schedule changes or opportunities to take a job after school that might not have been available that morning when they left for school. So there's some really good aspects to having that available. But yeah, I'm definitely a fan of getting it out the learning time. I don't think that it's been helpful for the social emotional issues that we're seeing in our classes, and we're definitely seeing a disconnect from one-on-one ability to communicate with one another. And I think that this is definitely going to push that and hopefully fill that gap.
Yeah, and with the TikTok and all that stuff, because I saw Shine on there, and it's lowering self-esteem and all that too. It's just not a good thing.
Because we do have tech classes, and you have to learn how to use these cell phones too. It's a very appropriate way to do that if you're being taught, and making sure that all those notifications are turned off so that when the texts aren't coming in, that social media is not accessible, turning off those notifications and those social media sites during that time, I think is also appropriate. And we have allowed that in our school.
I thought that was something that was a really good idea. Do you have a current policy on trans pronouns and all that stuff? No.
So we are, I guess it's coming into policy review. I asked our superintendent about that at the end of the legislative cycle, where POLA did sign the new law that it was House Bill 24-1039 or 1139, 1039. And so there is nothing in there about pronouns in this new bill. That it does state that teachers or staff or students, anybody actually, has to use a preferred name, and it references non-legal names. So a student can choose what name they want to be called without parental guidance or even them knowing that this is happening in schools. And thankfully, our policy review will be looking at that and making sure that we are telling parents, because even though it's not the law, I think our district will be able to utilize our local power and say we will be making sure that parents know. Of course, I'm one board member, and this is what I'm hoping and gearing towards. Another issue that came up in this is that Colorado snuck it into their Department of Regulatory Agencies pages, where I didn't even know this group existed, but there's a civil rights segment to our DORA. And within that rule where they added this new law, it was already stated that pronouns were to be used, and would be something that could be brought against a teacher or anybody in a government agency that they're not using a pronoun that somebody has aligned themselves with. And so it gets really tricky, because even though that wasn't in the law, the civil rights rule is in there. It's like on page 31. I looked it up because I couldn't believe it. But our school district has always had a preferred name option on our registration. A lot of people use Bob instead of Robert, or I use Beth instead of Beth. And so we've always had a segment in our registration where a preferred name can be used. So I believe we're just going to be able to utilize that same line. What this law does is makes it possible for the teacher to actually get in trouble if they don't use as preferred name. It doesn't have to be a legal name, and it doesn't have to be something that the parent is aware of. And it's really unclear as to how many times the student can change that name. There's not a lot of guidance given in the law as to how often that can be changed. So I'm hoping that that's another thing that in our policy review we will be able to discuss and maintain some sort of guardrails so that it's not overused or something that can get a little tricky and let the students overrun option like this.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe our district has a specific one of the pronoun to do, but I believe they have the same one you can have your preferred name, which I get. Sometimes I got my Elizabeth, sometimes I got my Matt, sometimes I go my list. It just depends on when you know me. So that I absolutely understand, but I can see how it could make that a very, very accurate.
Yeah, because that's the concerning thing. Does this law then narrow it down so much to the teacher that they have to use that cat name for the students? I mean, it's so vaguely written, and it's very intimidating to a teacher, I would think, as to how they're going to get treated in their classroom when they have 30 kids and they're supposed to remember all these new names. I could never imagine how we are going to prove that it was misused intentionally. There's too many aspects in this that I think the teachers, I'm fearful that we're gonna lose our staff over something so kind of crazy that, it's just something I didn't see coming.
Well, if any of my high school classmates are listening, are you picturing in your mind those of us who would have picked absurd names just because we thought it was funny and changed them every week? We had a handful of jokers in my high school class, and I think we would have done that and thought it was very funny. So I can see where that would be very problematic.
Definitely. And again, putting those limits I think is a priority, and I'm hoping that our attorney will point out that the law does not really put too much boundaries against that, and that we'll be able to do that. Again, it's coming, but I'm not sure where it's going to end.
Holy cow. Holy cow. Shifting gears, what can you tell us about curriculum and curriculum changes that are happening or concerning?
So curriculum in Colorado, we are a state that has curriculum actually discussed in our state constitution. So local school boards have the right to prepare the curriculum, to pick the curriculum. Colorado also has our Colorado state standards. And those standards are driven by law, driven by the State Board of Education, and then filtered down through each district throughout Colorado. What we ran into when 2 years ago, hasn't been never happened years ago, everything. The first law, I think, was back in 2019 when the comprehensive sex ed curriculum was forced. Then a couple of years later came the social studies curriculum that brought in the culture teachings of LGBTQ and the minority groups. We have already ironed all of that out in our district, and I like where it laid. What happened with us was we were able to say no to the comprehensive sex ed. We're going to continue doing what we're doing. We're going to it's called a health and wellness class, and it is optional. Students do not have to take it. Everything that is taught in that class is available on our website during that time frame. Our parents are made aware of that it's coming. They can opt them in or out, and then they're directed to the website where they can go in and see exactly what's going to be taught and talked about in that classroom. What they don't get to see is the questions that come in through that class when it's being taught. So we have got to be very careful in making sure when we're telling our students that, yes, I'm allowing you to go do this, you want to go do this, they still need to make sure that they can keep an open dialogue at home with their parents about what crazy things might have been brought up in the classroom and how those teachers may have responded to those, because there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. And my shirt right now, I don't know if you can see it, it says, I'm just a mom who does not want to co-parent with the government. I still 100% believe that parents have the right to teach these things. Fortunately, our society is created and made up of a lot of, we're the melting pot. We have it all. And so we have to make sure that our families know and create that dialogue between their students at home so that those questions can be asked and then go from there. We're very lucky in Colorado that our school districts get to put in that curriculum, even though our legislators decided that they wanted to overstep our boundaries and say, you're going to do this as a new law, it's required. And I get that from a lot of concerned parents. On the other side, I'm very conservative. I get the liberals side also is very angry that we're not following, because in this law it does say that it's required. It's not required for our curriculum to be chosen by our politicians. We get to do that at the local level, and where our district is doing a very good job. We put it all online. Our parents can see it anytime. Same with the social studies. We just launched a website for the social studies as well. Everything on there. Parents can go in at any time and see what is how we're aligning our curriculum with the state standards and what's being taught in the classroom.
That's great. It's great. Elizabeth, what do you ask your kids when they come home from school every day?
Every day I ask them, my daughter, I say, did anybody tell you you were a boy today? And she says, no. And then I ask my boys, did anybody tell you you were a girl today? It was our little boy. He's like, boys to wear pink. I'm like, yeah, we to wear pink, but that doesn't mean you're a girl. He's like, I know. I was never be your answer every time, or we're going to have a problem.
So talking about that, another big issue is Title IX. Coming down from the feds, Title IX is very scary. Thankfully, our district is only, our budget is only 4% federally funded. So I honestly think if we wanted to say, sorry, feds, we're not following your Title IX, it wouldn't be a huge loss to our district. What it has done is it's put the fear in through our population. And unfortunately, there's no real black and white area. We are totally in the gray on this one. Our district was very lucky through ESSER funding. When COVID hit, we got a lot of money from the federal government to update a lot of our maintenance within our district. And we put in the unisex bathroom, and I think all of our schools now have unisex bathrooms where it's just one bathroom. If you are feeling uncomfortable with going anywhere, or if you are going through a transition, you are directed to use that bathroom. Title IX does say that that is not allowed. Title IX says that that is discriminatory against that student, and that having that one bathroom for them was not the answer. But that was the way our district has handled it. We have just in our high schools, we are adding a coach's bathroom with a shower and the bathroom stalls and sinks, so that if students who are transitioning need to use that facility, then they are welcome to it. Unfortunately, the law does not say that they should. And it becomes tricky and it becomes scary for a lot of parents. And I'm very thankful that our district has worked really hard with our students who are going through those transitions. Even though I don't agree with what is happening in the full-fledged change of this, it is happening and we have to deal with it, and everybody has to deal with it in that school. So we've got to make sure that those students still feel welcomed and loved, and we're giving them an education. And this has not hit too hard in our district, but it is definitely hitting.
And Don Moss-Delivery is in the middle of the lawsuit. It's like that. Just know I'm not sure where it's going or what the result will be, but we didn't get a chance to put our district on there. But there is a list of all the districts that are on that lawsuit, and there's a lot. So hopefully that.
Still am a member of Moms for Liberty, and I have gotten really confusing information from them stating that they won their lawsuit, that if you're a parent that has your students in school, they won a lawsuit that those schools do not have to follow Title. I'm very unclear as to the legalities of that and what that really means, because our state was not one that joined that lawsuit against Title IX, unfortunately, but I'm not surprised. But it's very interesting to me to see how the legalities of how as one school in a district is going to be somehow not tied to Title IX. I don't know. That's going to be another interesting.
Yeah, I haven't been closely as I would like to, so I'm not completely sure on how this didn't work either for my district.
But do you see what I mean? That's the gray area.
Yeah.
But we're living in such a gray area right now where all these things are just hammering down on us, and there's no right or wrong or left or right or black and white. It's
Right.
Yeah. It's really difficult.
Yep. So, Kristine, you had mentioned something about the doctor's office or something connected to the school. The
kids clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a kids clinic within our district, and it's very, very troublesome to me for many reasons. We've had this for almost 10 years now. and it's flown under the radar. It's 100% funded by the clinic itself through grants and service pay. So the schools, our per pupil, we're not paying for it. Our school there's no education money going through. It's not funneling through anyhow. So we're not paying for it. We're housing them, and we're giving them the opportunity to give some amazing services to students who might not be able to get to their doctor, because we do live in an area where doctors are pretty hard to get into. So there's a clinic where you can get stitches there, you can get your teeth cleaned, you can get, my Lord, you can get anything there, really. Unfortunately, where the catch is that there is no parental guidance for these students to walk into this clinic at all. And these clinics can do whatever they want with your student without you knowing. There is way too many students in the middle school area who are utilizing this for STDs and birth control and mental health. And that is very concerning, because me as a parent, I want to know if my student is going through some mental health crisis. I do not want that to go unnoticed at home. We need to deal with that at home just as much as they need to be dealing with that at school. And unfortunately, they are not telling parents about this. They don't have to. They tell us that they want the students to contact home, and they guide them to do that, but it doesn't have to happen. And I can guarantee you that it's not happening on a very large scale.
I would have knowing
logically,
and you hope that you notice at home, but that's not always the case, especially with so many families where both parents are working and there's so much stress already there.
Absolutely. And they're making it easier and easier for these students to get this. They just expanded up and opened up another clinic up in the North Fork in our area. So they're expanding their services, and it is hard for our kids to get in and see doctors here. It's definitely something. I mean, we got urgent care, about 5 years ago. That's alleviated some of the doctor's office visits, and it's so there are some more options in our area, but it's so easy it's just one more check on the parent's box to not have to take their kid to do something. Just tell them to go to the clinic at school, and it's free.
Yeah.
well, and logically, I was a middle school student and I wanted to get birth control. If I wanted my parents to know about it, they would take me to a doctor, then they would know about it. If I'm going to the kids clinic that my parents will be notified, it's because I don't want them notified. I mean, being logically, my parents would know if I wanted them to know. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
what a conundrum. And like you said, though, they do offer services to the community, to the students that need it. And that's fabulous.
Right.
That's fabulous.
But they've taken it too far. It's become its own monster. And I have felt that pain for many parents that didn't even know about it. But I guess the non-communication about this is more frightening, because 90% of our parents do not even understand that this is available to their students. The students know, but the parents don't.
That's scary.
It is. I didn't know until I was, at the school board meetings listening. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't know about what they're seeing here. This is what? So, you're right that parents and families really need to get involved and take the time, because we live in this gray world where we don't have a set of social norms anymore that we can anticipate that everybody is going to fall within, these boundaries. There aren't any. Parents now need to really accelerate or engage in a different way, a more active way than they have. Like Elizabeth, for example.
Yeah, I've been trying to be active. I'm trying to get more involved. But when I had my oldest in school, he was going to be 11. I was like, he's going to go to school. He's going to come home, and I'll ask him about his day. And that's as involved as I want to be. And then COVID hit, everything shut down, and I started seeing things that I didn't like, that I didn't agree with. It was like the masking was like my biggest. I was on my 7 hours a day. And I jumped in and started a parents group and started getting parents involved, other parents that were upset about it. And we actually did manage to get masks off the kids, but it was way longer than we wanted. But I got those already. Yeah. And I know our school is small. Our one elementary school, there's 2 elementary schools, and I know school and high school. And one of the elementary schools is close to closing because there's just nobody's moving out here. And with the whole mask.
Well, and see, what I've noticed since COVID and on our school district, they refuse to admit that parents are taking their students out of the district because it started with COVID. It started with, in Colorado, it started with the comprehensive sex ed. Then we hit COVID. Then we hit the social studies standards change where the culture was to be taught. They're ignoring it's right in our faces. They're taking their kids out. We have so many more options of private schooling and Christian schooling here. We have a lot of online options now. All parents do. All I hear when we talk about funding being depleted because of enrollment numbers being so low, they refuse to see the why and to figure that we have got to start listening to our parents and why they are taking our students out. They are not moving at the rate that they say they are.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just moving out. Oh, we're becoming a retirement community. Oh, there's no jobs here. I keep hearing that, but our statistics in our county do not show that. Our statistics show, and the waiting lists at these Christian schools show that these parents are just silently taking their kids out. They're not fighting anymore. Mm-hmm. They're not showing up to school board meetings. We have 0 people show up at our school board meetings. They're tired of fighting, right? They're dealing. They're taking the initiative to put their students in the type of education that they see fit. And public school right now is not that answer for many.
Yeah. My oldest, his class, like, we're a smaller school, so we already have smaller classes. Like, there's only classes per grade in the elementary school. It's just elementary school. So it's very small. In my oldest class, they went from having 2 classes in kindergarten to now we're going to 5th grade. There's only enough students to make up 1 class. So they have lost and half just in that grade. So there's a lot. You're right. They're reading, why they're reading. And I talk to these parents. So I know these parents, and I know why they love their kids, and I know why they're not coming back. Not without a very big shift in the school system.
They're afraid of so much. And I'll tell you what frightens me too is Colorado just changed the structure of our school funding. So we used to have what was called a BS factor. I don't know if you're familiar with all of this. For Colorado is so different. But what ended up happening is that they kept taking funding from the school to pay all of their other fun things that the government wanted to fund. And for over years and years and years, our school funding was not reaching what they said what we were deserved. So they finally got rid of that formula, and they have concocted some new formula that nobody even understands how this is really going to fold out. And I've even heard our Colorado Association of School Boards, finance and government leaders are really concerned that they're not going to be able to continue with this type of formula that they're coming up with, but they're going to try it. What frightens me is that they are basing it on special needs of children. So there's going to be more funding for districts who have higher levels of special needs students. What that creates is a system of failure. They are no longer going to want these students to surpass anything because they're going to desire the funding that's going to come from keeping these students on an IEP and in need of more services.
Right? Yeah, I'm just taking a minute to let that sink in. And I want to use a swear word.
And that's a lot of money, and, the IEPs and everything for each student, it's like almost double what, I would say a regular or average student, but, a non-special needs student is. And I have a friend that's dealt with issues for years with her son because they're just not spending money where they're supposed to for those students. But then they're claiming they don't have enough money to do anything. So that's a very big issue for sure.
Yeah, and I think what also scares me is what constitutes an IEP. We have so many social emotional issues going on, and they haven't really identified, I think 63% of our students in our district, I might not be right with that. It's not sounding right. We already have more than half of our students on an IEP, and it's bogging down our teaching and our staff so hard because that is creating hundreds of pages of paperwork each student that has to be completed on a quarterly basis for these students, and that's taking away teaching time. That is what these students need. They need their teacher, and it's creating a paperwork nightmare, and funding is just crazy.
Wow. Wow. That's like a snowball. You think about, extend that out 10, 15, 20 years from now, and think of the impact that's going to have on our, our society, our world. Yikes. I don't know if you can still hear me.
You're cutting out, but I can get every other word.
Yeah, I'm getting this little thing. I'm trying to reconnect, I guess. We're getting close to the end of our time, but one other thing that I wanted to circle back to or talk about is testing. I know Elizabeth has mentioned before that she's on a list that before her kids take tests, she gets to go in and look at them first. And so, I was kind of thinking that maybe I'd like to hear Elizabeth's perspective and then Beth's perspective, how testing is talked about or discussed behind the scenes. Well, not behind the scenes, but from the administrative perspective.
Okay. Well, I got my children, so far it's just my oldest, but it'll be both my two oldest this year from going to have a hard time remembering it's called the state testing, basically, the DSSAs. And my issues with it is that the questions, you don't know what they're going to be. Like, I have to go in, and that's what you have to do. You have to go in with someone that's at the school, and with the principal of the school. And you can go through the questions if you want to and see what they are, and then opt your child out. I never get any questions. I don't know what the questions are going to be for my child, and I don't want there to be any that I'm not okay with, because I'm not going to see that. They don't allow you to see them, because every answer they give, sorry, the cat wants to say hi. Every answer they give changes the next question, and that's where my biggest issue lies. So even if I go in and I see everything, it's not exactly going to be what my child sees. So I've opted them out. But I also believe that the teachers are already doing that with, the conferences that you go to every quarter to see how your student is doing. So for me, it's kind of something that doesn't necessarily need to be done. You don't have to do the testing and have the teacher telling your child how they're doing. I would rather it come from the teacher. You able to have communication with the teacher saying, okay, your child is struggling in reading. This is what we're doing. Instead of them taking this really long test, especially the older they get, for the children, to say something the teacher could have already told me.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we are overburdening our teachers and our students with testing. We give the social emotional tests, we give CNAS tests, we give all of these crazy things throughout the year. Book benchmarking, there's just so many tests. When are the students learning? When is the teacher teaching? How are we creating environment of academics when I feel like they're just teaching to the test? And it goes to Colorado state standards, because we as a district have to prove to the government that we are meeting the state standards, and they do that through testing. So that's basically how we're getting our funding. We're telling them, yep, we hit all of our standards, and here's the proof. Our students proved to you that we hit 69% of all of these numbers that you wanted us to hit. Okay, that's where they put us on a watch list. In fact, we had one school on a watch list last year who their students didn't meet their number, the state number. So the state comes in and evaluates, and they can close that school down. I mean, that's how detrimental it is to our district to make sure that students are taking those tests and they're doing good, because it can turn over to the state rule and we lose our local control at that point. So it is a big, nasty web of financing, and it's harming the system. And I think it's taking too much time away from the actual education in the classroom to get these kids ready for standardized testing. And as a parent, I tell my kids, I don't care how you do on those tests. You're not being graded. They put these tests either before or after a break. And it drives me crazy as a parent, because coming back to school from a break to go into days of testing is just asinine. Get these tests done before break. These kids' brains are turned off. There is absolutely nothing. And they put them during sporting events. So my kid had a baseball game that lasted until 8 o'clock that night. We had an hour drive home, and then they get mad at me because my kid is tired when it's their game schedule. I mean, it just makes no sense how they place these tests. I am in favor of what I just called a benchmark test. That's where you see what you're talking about in conferences. They have a one-on-one with your student. You usually take them out into the hallway. They have a sub in their classroom teaching, so that the teacher can do a benchmark testing on the reading, the math, and they give you that is enough for me. If their grades are coming home and their papers are coming home good, you guess what, kids, you're doing great. I don't care about the standardized testing. I don't tell them they can't take it, because what are they going to do for hours and hours? That's almost more frightening to me. At least I know they're in the classroom doing something. Right. So I do let them take them. I don't put any weight on them at home. They're not being graded.
Right. Yeah, I almost did take it the first year, and that's exactly what I told them. I said, I don't care how you do all these. You're not to get stressed out about it. It's ridiculous, because this whole really do put a lot of pressure of the 2 weeks up to the testing time. It's insane. Granted, these kids it starts at 3rd grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. It's insane how much pressure they get put on. I tried to tell them, okay, but
on top of that, our district, they require these to be taken on the computer now. There's no more pencil paper. It's on the computer. At 3rd grade, our teachers had no tech classes. So my kids, we are very conservative. Our kids still did not play video games. They weren't on the computer. My kids didn't even know how to work the computer to take the test. How sad is it that we are forcing these kids to not only academically meet this new desire that this school has placed upon them, then they don't even know how to utilize it. They don't even know how to walk in there and take the test. And when they ask for help, the teachers were told they cannot help them. So it was just a lose-lose on every aspect for my poor kids. So I'm not a fan. I wish that there was another way of doing this, but unfortunately it is never going away because it is tied to funding.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Seth, for being here. You are our first interview since we had a little break, so we are so happy that you're here. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, if you can hear me. Thank you.